One day when I got home, there was a wild kale dog, completely black with a single white spot on its chest. Mom, this puppy is so young and already lost its mother. I want to keep it. This dog isn't much to look at, and it's already so sturdy for its size. It'll definitely turn fierce when it grows up. Let's find it a new home. You'd think that any animal in its infancy would show at least a hint of adorable clumsiness. But there's something about the wild, untamed-looking Kale's eyes that always sends a chill down my spine. My son plopped down on the floor, scooped up the puppy, and threw a full-blown tantrum. My husband and in-laws all jumped in, accusing me of having no compassion. From that day on, the puppy started working as a one-dog demolition crew in our house. No matter how sturdy a cage I bought, I could never keep him contained, that is, until our dog Kale chewed through the water main while we were out. The entire house was flooded, and the damage even leaked down to our poor neighbors below. I saw red. I grabbed a kitchen cleaver and was ready to turn that dog into hot pot. My son secretly let the dog out, broke my phone, and forbade me from calling the property management to catch it. Not only did we fail to get the dog back, but we also ended up draining our family's entire savings. My husband blamed me for not keeping an eye on the dog and divorced me. I ended up with nothing, neither the children nor the house, and had to slink back to my parents' home in disgrace. 5 years later, I came home from work as usual. I found the front door unlocked, and upon opening it, I was met with an utterly gruesome scene. My vision was filled with crimson. The dismembered limbs and remains of my parents were scattered across the floor. Before I could even react, slam the door, or run, a hulking black figure emerged from inside and dragged me in. When I came to again, I found myself back on the very day my son brought the dog home. The puppy's wild, untamed gaze fixed on me, a string of clear drool hanging from its mouth. The memory of my past life's end, its tongue licking off my skin, its teeth crushing my bones, was still vivid and fresh, yet my legs felt as if they were cast from 1,000 pounds of lead. Utterly immovable, my son looked at me with sparkling eyes, his face beaming with excitement. Mom, this puppy lost its mother when it's so little. I want to take care of it. I turned my gaze to the sofa, where my husband sat looking guilty and avoiding my eyes, and my in-laws, whose eyes were full of pride for their wonderful, compassionate grandson. Mom, Dad, honey, weren't you supposed to take the child back to our hometown for the ancestral rites? About this dog, don't any of you have an explanation? My in-laws have always loved keeping dogs since their days in the countryside, using them to guard the house and yard. They said matter-of-factly, it's just a dog, it only needs a bit of food and it can watch the house. If my dear grandson wants to keep one, then let him. That's right. Besides, we two old folks don't have much to do at home anyway. Walking the dog would give us something to do and won't take up your time. My husband is the type of man who always thinks my parents are right. Sure enough, in the next moment, all trace of guilt vanished from his face as he spoke with righteous conviction. Honey, since your parents and our son all like it, let's get it. They said they'd take care of it. Our son chimed in. Mom, look, Dad and Grandma and Grandpa all agreed, words much like those from a past life. So it turns out her husband and in-laws weren't the least bit moved by their grandson's pitiful crying. They had simply been in on it with their son all along. I took a deep breath and let it out. Looking at the puppy, still too young to be a threat, I smiled and said, we'll keep him. But my son's smile wasn't as genuine as it had been at first. Mom, are you sure? I thought you used to hate cats and dogs. So he remembered. That makes his insistence on bringing home a stray dog from the rural mountains all the more intriguing. Fighting back my disgust and fear, I affectionately patted the black dog's head and said in a gentle tone, who said that? I'm just too busy with work and worried I wouldn't be able to take good care of them. Who doesn't love a fluffy little thing? The black dog's wary, cold gaze gradually softened as I petted its head and fed it the dog food my in-laws had brought. Honey, you're the best. I always knew you were the kindest, most caring person in the world. That's the right decision. We always had dogs like this back home. With one around, we could sleep soundly at night. Sweetie, are you happy? Now you'll have a little puppy to play with. The black dog was actually a black bear cub, not only highly intelligent but also extremely vindictive. In my past life, I strongly objected to keeping this black dog that seemed off. I was the first one the black dog held a grudge against. When it first started tearing up the house, it would specifically target and destroy items that carried my scent the most. It not only disrupted my daily life, but also nearly got me fired from my job. I broke down in tears and begged my husband and in-laws to get rid of the black dog, but they just responded with chilling indifference. Why does it only chew up your documents, computer, clothes, and jewelry, but never ours? Don't you think you should take a good look at yourself? Later, when the black dog repeatedly attacked people and destroyed property in the neighborhood, I could tell they despised it too, yet, every single time, they pushed me out front to be the villain in my son's eyes, the one who was ostracizing the dog, buying the cage, the chain, apologizing and paying compensation, repairing the house. They wanted no part in any of it. So, in the end, I was the only one the black bear remembered. Even though the black bear had never been to my parents' home, it still managed to wipe out my entire family with chilling accuracy in this life. I will not stop my son from getting a dog, likewise. I will no longer bear the consequences of dog ownership for him and his family, I agreed without a second thought, but my son kept pressing me with questions. Mom, I'm going to take care of him for his whole life. You know, dogs can live over 10 years. Are you really sure you're okay with that? Look at all this fur on Kale. When he sheds his coat, the house is going to be full of flying hair. Kale is so big and strong. He already eats almost as much as I do when he grows up. He might even eat more than the whole family combined. Now I'm sure my son doesn't like this dog nearly as much as he claimed in his past life. Hearing that, I stood up and placed my hand, fresh from petting the dog, on my son's head. I patted his head just like I had the dog. You've already given it a name. That makes you its owner. You have to see this through and take full responsibility. No giving up halfway, understand? My son stared at me with utter disbelief on his face. He was completely oblivious to the fact that I had just wiped all the loose fur and grime from the black dog onto his head. All right, since we've decided to keep Kale, Mom, Dad, you need to hurry up and get him a dog bed, food bowls, and kibble. My mother-in-law's face, which had been beaming like a sunflower, instantly fell. You young people know more about these things. Just order something online. I won't meddle. My father-in-law chimed in, that's right, just tap on your phone and it'll be delivered. Hurry up, we can't have Kale with nowhere to sleep tonight. I shrugged innocently, but didn't you just say you have experience with dogs and that I wouldn't need to worry about taking care of it? My understanding was that I wouldn't have to lift a finger for Kale's food, clothes, or shelter. Isn't that right? My in-laws' faces fell, and my husband quickly jumped in to smooth things over. Honey, what kind of way is that to talk? How much could these things possibly cost? We're family. Do you really have to nickel and dime everything? My heart gave a violent, painful lurch as I stared at my husband as if he were a stranger. It was the same in my past life. They said I would be supporting their entire family, but as time went on, from major expenses like medical bills to the most trivial daily needs, everything except for the effortless, cost-free companionship fell entirely on my shoulders. I said with a hint of sarcasm, it's really not that much. A dog bed, food, bowls, a leash, a crate, that's about it for now. Just a few thousand. With that, I held out my phone to show the payment QR code. Honey, let's just make it a round number. Just transfer me 10,000 for now. I'll let you know when I need more. 3 sharp, explosive pops rang out in the living room. It's just a dog. How can it possibly cost that much? $10,000, that's highway robbery. Aloan, your money is my money, isn't it? You eat my food, you live under my roof, and now you expect me to pay for your dog. Have you lost your mind? Seeing that neither of them was willing to pay, I turned the payment QR code towards my son. His smartwatch actually has money in it, linked to the bank card where he saves all his annual New Year's money. Son, Kale is a living creature. You found him, so you're responsible for him. How about you cover the cost? My son quickly retreated behind his father, clutching his wrist and looking at me as if I were a thief. Mom, I'm just a kid. How can you ask a child for money? Tisk, I said with a serious look at the clueless dog. Kale, it's not that I don't want to keep you. It's just that they won't pony up for your supplies. You're better off on the streets. Even as I said that, I didn't try to drag him away. Instead, I tore open one of my son's snack sausages and fed it to Kale. After a lot of arguing, my husband reluctantly transferred 5,000 yuan to me. Don't go overboard. For the dog bed, food, and all that, just get something decent. No need to buy the top-of-the-line stuff. I saw it clearly, the disgust that welled up in his eyes as he looked at the black dog. The corners of his lips tugged upward in a pleased little smile. All right, I'll handle it. You're so sweet, honey, really spoiling our son. Under the withering glare of his parents and the starry-eyed admiration of his son, the husband silently swallowed his bitter pill. After giving the family's black dog the last of my son's snack sausages, I turned and went back to my room. The muffled sounds of an argument among 3 generations drifted in from the living room. It's just a stray dog we picked up for free. Why give her so much money? It's a complete waste. Son, are you out of your mind? 5,000 could buy so many treats for my precious grandson. How could you just give it to her like that? All right, Mom, Dad, wasn't it you who said you'd help take care of Seth? I'm just paying for your decision. Dad, didn't you say you loved me the most and I could ask you for anything? Son, don't you know 5,000 is enough to buy a beautiful pedigree dog? Forget it. You're still too young to understand. Contrary to their expectations, I did not spend my own money to buy daily necessities and dog food for Black Dog. As soon as I closed the door, I began to pack up my belongings. I stored what I could in the top compartment of the wardrobe, and locked the rest away in suitcases in a safe. The most crucial items were in the suitcase: documents, bank cards, a laptop, and valuable jewelry. Despite its destructive power, the black bear was still young, and its teeth weren't strong enough to chew through the suitcase. By the time I finished, the commotion outside had just about died down. I wiped the sweat from my brow and stepped out. Honey, I checked online and the fastest delivery is tomorrow. Why don't you drive Kale to the pet store now to get some supplies to tide us over? Even though we had just gotten back from our hometown, our son jumped for joy the moment he heard we were going out. Mom, Dad, I want to go too. Let's leave right now. My in-laws shot me a sidelong glance, their tone dripping with insinuation. You're coming too, right? I nodded naturally. Of course, actually, it's perfect timing. I was planning to take some clothes I'm not wearing at the moment back to my parents' place. I had just dragged the suitcase out when my mother-in-law reached over, trying to snatch it from me. Let me see what you've got in there. You've already had our child, and you're still sneaking the good stuff back to your parents' place. Are you trying to ruin this marriage? I deftly sidestepped her, my face cold and my voice low and firm. Mom, these are my personal belongings. You have no right to go through them. My gaze, sharp as a knife, turned toward my husband, who was also eyeing my suitcase with suspicion. Damon, is that what you think too? If it's just some old clothes you don't wear anymore, what's the harm in letting my mom take a look? My father-in-law and my son joined in, urging me to hand over the suitcase. So that's what you all think of me. If that's the case, there's no point in continuing this marriage. I didn't know if my husband had taken the black dog out. I took a taxi back to my parents' house by myself. After putting everything away, I fell into a deep, heavy sleep. In less than 3 days, the husband who had declared he wanted a divorce showed up in person to take me home. The shirt and trousers, which were always perfectly pressed under my care, now bore obvious creases. His hair was slightly disheveled, and a faint stubble had begun to show on his chin. Honey, I know I was wrong, Seth, and I can't live without you. Please come home with me. This was his old trick of playing the victim in front of my parents. I only learned this detail in my past life, after our divorce, when my husband told me himself to mock my naivety. Seeing how pitiful her husband looked, my mother's heart softened, and she joined in trying to persuade me. Aloan, all couples argue. That's enough now. Don't let it escalate and damage your relationship. I still have a lot of my things left to take. The black dog was another potential problem. I couldn't let my husband and son redirect its aggression toward me again, so I decided to play along and put on a show for my husband. Tears instantly welled up and fell. I reached out and wiped my tears and runny nose all over his expensive suit jacket, the one he was so careful with. He wouldn't even let it wrinkle for the sake of the act. Darling, we've been married for over 10 years, and yet you can't even give me that little bit of trust. I'm just going back to my parents' house, and you have to check my suitcase. Seeing how pitiful I looked, my mother chimed in and scolded her son-in-law a bit. Following my lead, Damon. This is where you and your parents are in the wrong. In all these years of marriage, when has Aloan ever done anything to wrong you? How could you possibly suspect her like that? Through the shimmer of tears, I could vaguely make out my husband's face, twisted almost beyond recognition as he stared at my hand. This is a high-end piece, so delicate it can't even be hand-washed. It's incredibly precious. I doubled down, holding him tight and just wiping my face on his jacket. I slapped away his hands trying to push me off, grabbed his collar, and started grilling him. Wah, look at this. You said your parents were coming to help with the baby and look after us, and what happened? I was gone for 1 day, and even your collar is all wrinkled and grimy. Back when my son was first born, my mother-in-law had a bad back and my father-in-law had leg pain. Neither was willing to lend a hand. My own mother, seeing how hard it was for me, took early retirement. While looking after the baby, she also took care of all the daily needs for my husband and me, but just as my son reached kindergarten age and was finally becoming self-sufficient, my mother-in-law, with my father-in-law in tow, drove my own mother away. After that, the two of them proceeded to act like the emperor and empress dowager in my own home. Regarding childcare, I used to feel terribly guilty towards my mother. That's why I never dared to tell my own parents about the hardships after my in-laws moved in. As soon as Mom caught the implication in my words, that I'd been handling all the housework after she left, she was livid. She was completely done with my husband's act of playing the victim and feigning helplessness. I raised my daughter with such care, never letting her lift a finger at home, and this is how you treat her in your household. Damon, what exactly did you promise me before we got married? And again after your parents moved in, and what have you actually done? My mother yanked my husband away with all her strength. Get out, you're not welcome in this house, and my daughter is done being your family's unpaid maid. I heard the distinct sound of fabric tearing, and only then, satisfied, did I let go. I saw my husband's face turn ashen, yet he had to swallow his anger and beg for mercy. Honey, Mom, let's talk this out calmly, no need for violence. I felt a deep sense of satisfaction. But I didn't say a single word in his defense. After my husband had very sincerely guarded my family's door all afternoon, I was placated and went home with him. When we got home, I saw the once beloved black dog from my past life, pitifully huddled in a corner of the balcony. There wasn't even a proper doghouse. In the following days, the son behaved just as he had in his past life. He would often sneakily undo the clasp on the black dog's collar when the adults at home weren't paying attention. Soon, the black dog had a new bed, the down jacket that the husband had spent a month's salary on last year. But it's too hot now. Using a down jacket as a mattress directly will just give you heat rash. So I laid down the bamboo mat from my in-laws' room, the one the dog had chewed up for the most part. Good girl. No more chewing on things, okay, do you hear me? or I'll stuff it all in your bed. My husband and in-laws thought I was scolding the black dog and were quite pleased about it. My son clearly didn't see it that way. Mom, Kale didn't mean to do it. You can't blame him for following his instincts. I casually pulled over the tattered cardboard box next to the dog bed. I leisurely tore open the packet of kids' snacks and fed them to the black dog. Son, you said it yourself. Since you're so enlightened, I'm sure you won't mind if Kale has your snacks. Mom, those are my snacks. Put them down. I haven't even had my fill yet. Oh, but the package is already torn up by Kale. If you want some, just ask your grandparents to buy you a new one. As my son threw a tantrum on the floor, I continued brainwashing the black dog. Kale, you're overthinking it. Seth is just young and a bit possessive with his treats, but deep down he really likes you. Mom, you don't love me anymore. Why are you nicer to the dog than you are to me? I didn't answer his question. Later, my son went and complained to my husband and his grandparents. I didn't say a word, but quietly pulled up the living room security feed. They heard with their own ears our son telling me not to scold the black dog, even though their hearts still ached for their son. They didn't blame me. That dog hasn't been checked by a vet. It could be sick for all we know. The packaging is torn. You can't eat that, Seth. Your mother is right. You mustn't say things like that again. Don't cry. Grandpa will take you to buy a new one tomorrow. My husband kept looking at me, seeing that I was being particularly obtuse today. He cleared his throat and spoke up. Aloan, you were the one who always bought these snacks before. Mom and Dad don't have much of a pension. You see, I pretended not to understand. But you always used to blame me for buying the kid snacks and spoiling him, didn't you? Don't worry. I won't be a bad influence like that anymore. That one sentence left the other 4 people in the living room completely stunned. Mommy's mean. I'm not going to be friends with Mommy anymore. Honey, that's not what I meant. It's okay, sweetheart. You're the family's legacy. If your mom doesn't love you, you still have your grandparents. We'll always cherish you. If you don't share the family name, you can never truly be part of the family. Don't be afraid, sweetie. You still have your grandparents. While they were putting on their little show of grandparent-grandchild harmony, I slipped back to my room. I've packed a fresh suitcase of personal belongings, just waiting for the next chance to storm off back to my parents' house in a huff, with my son and the black dog around. Opportunities like that are a dime a dozen, in less than a month. The number of kids the black dog has scared to tears and pedestrians it has bitten is more than I can count on both hands. Every time my son comes home, all he does is cry, and my in-laws put on a show that's more aggressive and aggrieved than the actual victims. My husband dropped a few hints, but I pretended not to notice, so he just came right out and said it. Honey, my parents are getting on in years, and our son is still so young. Maybe you could take care of this. I just pulled up my payment QR code. Honey, you know all my money goes towards our son's tutoring and our household expenses. I really don't have any to spare, sorry, but unless there's 10,000 yuan for emotional distress and an advance on the compensation, we have nothing to discuss. In my past life, when I went groveling with apologies and compensation, what I got in return wasn't just verbal abuse. Some of the more agitated ones would actually fly into a rage and start hitting people. 10,000. I'm starting to think I asked for too little, even though I haven't spent a single cent on this family since I was reborn. But no one can erase the contributions I made to this household for over a decade. Darling, you've changed. You weren't like this before. We never had this kind of expense before. Oh, and Kale's dog food is almost out. Can you send me some money? What? I just transferred you 5,000 last month. It's gone already. Do you think I'm a money printer? So this is how pragmatic my husband becomes when money is involved. I showed my husband the spending records. Look. Here's my online shopping history. The 5,000 is long gone. Then, they pointed at the many pieces of worn-out furniture in the house, and then there's all this furniture. Forget the rest for a moment, but when tables and chairs break, they obviously need to be replaced. Why do I have to be the one to pay for all of this? Isn't this our home together? Darling, have you forgotten? The house is your premarital asset, and I'm broke. I pretended to be in a difficult spot and pulled up the order records for our son's after-school tutoring classes. If you insist I pay for this, I'll have no choice but to cancel one of our son's classes. Which one should I drop? Whichever I choose, he'll be heartbroken. My husband slammed my screen off and said through gritted teeth, "Don't bother returning it. I'll cover the cost." The next second, 10,000 yuan was transferred to my phone. The corners of my mouth lifted into an involuntary smile. Honey, I'll tell our son that you love him the most, about that hospital, but 10,000 yuan is only enough for a new dining table and chairs. As for the rosewood desk in the study that you love so much, I need to get to the hospital first. Please look after our son and my parents. We can talk about everything else when I get back. I couldn't help but find my husband's hurried departure amusing. Honey, drive carefully. Don't get into an accident. Your third-party liability insurance is only $1 million this year. If you wreck something, we can't afford to pay for it. My husband's figure staggered slightly. He turned and gave me a long, deep look. I understand. The incident of the black dog destroying the faucet happened again. However, I used the money my husband gave me for new furniture to install a smart main water valve that automatically shuts off in case of a leak. This time, unlike in my previous life, the downstairs neighbors weren't flooded. When my husband got home, he saw the whole incident through our home security camera, the black dog chewing through the faucet. Furious, he grabbed a kitchen knife, ready to make hot pot out of that dog. I'm going to kill that damn dog today. If it weren't for that smart water valve, hundreds of thousands would have just gone down the drain. My in-laws took our son and hid in the room. Sweetie, go inside with Grandma and Grandpa. This isn't something for a child to see. Swallowing my fear, I spread my arms wide and stood between the snarling black dog and them. Darling, Kale is just young and doesn't know any better. If we teach him properly, he won't do it again. He glanced at the door behind which his son was hiding. Kale is the one our son brought back from the mountain himself. If you kill it, you'll break his heart. At the mention of his son's name, all traces of paternal warmth vanished from his expression. Get out of my way. I'll deal with that little brat later. That dog dies today, and don't you dare try to stop me. As we stood off, I quietly undid the clasp on the black dog's collar. Under my cover, the black dog snuck around behind my husband and bit him right on the backside. Arg, that damn beast actually bit me. The black dog bit me and then quickly fled, but not before giving me one last look. I saw a flicker of something like attachment in its eyes, but felt not an ounce of warmth. That black dog had never been vaccinated. It was no different from a wild animal. After being bitten, my husband went to the hospital to receive the rabies vaccine. He started yelling at me before we even left the hospital. Aloan, if you hadn't insisted on protecting that damn animal, I would have killed it already. I wouldn't have gotten bitten. Seeing that I was indifferent and not really putting my heart into taking care of him, my husband grew even angrier. I want a divorce. I can't live like this for another day. My eyes lit up, and I quickly lowered my head, pretending to wipe away tears as I said fearfully, we've been married for over a decade, and our child is 13. What am I supposed to do without you and the kid? My husband looked smug. Crying won't help. I won't change my mind. We're going to the Civil Affairs Bureau tomorrow to file for divorce. I'm keeping the kids. Honey, I know you're just saying that in anger. There's a mandatory 30-day cooling-off period for divorce now. As long as I don't agree, we can't get divorced. And so it went, one of us shouting, the other crying. After being shushed by a nurse, I left in anguish to avoid disturbing his rest and went to sleep at my parents' house. The marital home wasn't completely flooded, but it's absolutely uninhabitable now. I must be out of my mind to go back and suffer with that ungrateful old couple and their kid. Early the next morning, I went to the hospital ward, carrying the tonic soup I had painstakingly simmered all night. My in-laws flanked me, practically dragging me out of the hospital and straight to the Civil Affairs Bureau. My son doesn't need a useless wife like you, and my precious grandson certainly doesn't need an irresponsible mother like you. Sign the divorce papers now. Mom, I'm so disappointed in you. How could you side with a dog to hurt Dad? I don't want you to be my mom anymore. Aloan, let's part on good terms. Just sign the papers. I just took a quick glance. Just like in my past life, left with nothing, immediately sat on the floor of the Civil Affairs Bureau, wailing and sobbing. I won't agree to this divorce. I haven't cheated. I don't smoke, drink, or gamble. What gives you the right to divorce me? After more than a decade of marriage, my salary covered all our household expenses while yours went entirely to your parents. On what grounds should I be left with nothing? I made too much of a scene, and my husband cares deeply about saving face. The divorce settlement was amended to split all marital assets 50-50, probably convinced I couldn't actually get my hands on the money. My husband signed with remarkable eagerness. Aloan, get your stuff out of here now, or I'm throwing it away. I hung my head, pretending to cry, and didn't respond. They're just old clothes I don't wear anymore, and they're all soaked. Anyone who wants them can have them. I certainly don't. Once the others had left, I covered my face and rushed out of the Civil Affairs office. I lifted my face, which bore no trace of tears, and left the Civil Affairs office with a smile. I moved back in with my family, after hearing my account. My parents had long since seen my husband and his family for who they truly were. You'll feel better once you're home. Someone gave me a warm, reassuring hug. That evening, they prepared a lavish dinner for me. Aloan, come on, eat up. You've gotten so thin and pale. In my parents' eyes, I always seemed to be that child who never quite grew up. Not someone's mother, someone's wife, or someone's daughter-in-law. There's always an endless stream of worries and burdens waiting for my slender shoulders to carry. It wasn't until I was getting a divorce that I understood the saying. You only think about marriage when you've had enough of the good life. During the cooling-off period, my husband and in-laws kept finding excuses to call me every other day. I pretended to go along with them on the surface, but in reality, I didn't lift a finger to help them with anything. It was either overtime at work or being too sick to go. I used every single excuse my husband's family had ever used to take advantage of me. The moment the 30 days were up, I immediately called my husband. Honey, today is the last day of the divorce cooling off period. You didn't call me. Are you having second thoughts? Have you decided not to go through with the divorce? Getting cold feet. What if we don't get divorced? Our son is only 13. He still needs his mother. In my past life, I chose to leave the marriage with nothing, all for the sake of my son. Less than 6 months after the divorce, my ex-husband remarried. Once his new mother entered the picture, my son never called me mom again, yet he was all too quick to affectionately call his father's new wife mom. Given a second chance at life, I won't make a single concession for this ungrateful son of mine. You're overthinking it. After a month without seeing you, our son has almost forgotten you. Impossible, I don't believe it. To scare me, my husband arranged to meet me right at the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau. It was just like the day we registered for our divorce. I was dragged into the Civil Affairs Bureau by my in-laws, completely against my will. I was in tears, pleading that I didn't want a divorce, under the threat from my in-laws that they would harm my son if I didn't comply. I was forced to agree and sign the divorce papers. As we left the Civil Affairs office, my ex-husband said with a smug look on his face, "Aloan, if you ever want to see the kids again, you'd better behave." Got it. I wiped away my fake tears and gave him a look of utter disbelief. Then I turned and walked away without a second glance. After the divorce, aside from the agreed-upon child support, I cut off all contact with my ex-husband and his family. They tried to use my son's visitation rights as leverage to force me to back down, threatening to keep me from seeing him. Honestly, it was a relief every time I see my son. I can't help but think of that black dog he brought home. I have nightmares about my past life every night. Perhaps it's for the best if we don't meet. It's good that we don't meet. It's even better that we don't meet. My ex-husband is getting remarried, around the same time as he did in my previous life. Just like before, he had the nerve to mail the wedding invitation to my house. The bride, however, isn't the same woman from last time. My son sent me a photo to show off his new mom. Her figure and looks aren't as good as the one from my past life. This set of wedding photos isn't as exquisite or beautiful as the ones from my marriage to my ex-husband. Looks like without me, divorced, yet slaving away to care for the kids and play the unpaid maid for their family. They're not doing so well after all. In my past life, my son's stepmother was clearly a sophisticated city woman. This one in this lifetime seems quite handy around the house, and looks like she'd be a good mother. In the blink of an eye, 5 years had passed. The closer I got to the date of the accident from my past life, the more anxious I felt. Using work stress and a desire to return to my hometown to relax as an excuse, I brought both my parents back to our old home. No one has lived here since Grandma and Grandpa passed away. The old house was covered in dust, and the furniture was damaged to varying degrees. Mom, Dad, let's renovate the old house and rent it out. I took some annual leave, and my parents are already retired. I've made up my mind. I'm definitely not going back until it's completely safe. My parents checked the house for any of my grandparents' belongings we could still take. They didn't even fill up my trunk. He let out a long, deep sigh. All right. The three of us were busy finding workers to fix the damaged walls and windows. We chopped up the unwanted wooden furniture to use as firewood for the stove. We piled up anything that could be sold for scrap, planning to call the recycling collector once everything was finished. Once we got busy, I almost forgot the panic brought on by the memories of my past life. It all started with a phone call from the hospital. "Is this a mess? Aloan, your son and your ex-husband's family have been attacked by a wild black bear and are being treated at the hospital. Would you be able to come in?" After hanging up, I didn't rush to head back to the city. Instead, I scrolled through the news and my neighborhood's community chat. I found out the whole story from the residents' group chat of my ex-husband's neighborhood. A black bear scaled the wall late at night, snuck into the complex, and, in a strangely human-like manner, knocked on my ex-husband's door. Fortunately, the knocking woke up the neighbor across the hall, who called the police in time. The property management and police arrived on the scene just before the bear could finish off my ex-husband's family. However, after injuring several people, the black bear fled the scene. Due to their advanced age, my former in-laws were carried out of the residential complex covered with white sheets. When my ex-husband, my son's stepmother, and my son were carried out, they were all severely mutilated and a horrific sight. The police have publicly stated that the black bear is a wild animal, not an escapee from a zoo, and are intensifying efforts to track and capture it. After seeing all this, my heart settled for a moment, only to be seized by a fresh wave of anxiety. Using a burner account, I anonymously posted these news stories in my residential complex's owner group chat. The moment I posted it, the entire complex erupted. I heard knocking at my door late at night a few days ago. Thank goodness I just pulled the covers over my head and went back to sleep without checking. It was terrifying. I saw some strange footprints in the hallway yesterday. Now that I think about it, they really did look a bit like bear tracks. So creepy. What about the property management? Check the security footage. Quick, we need to know if it's really a bear. No, if it really is that man-killing bear. We should call the police or contact the Forestry Bureau instead. I already called the police. But unfortunately, I didn't take a picture at the time, so they didn't believe me. Arg, what do we do now? They still tracked me down. I immediately gave up on the idea of rushing back to the city and decided to just keep in touch with the hospital by phone. Many homes in the residential complex have peepholes with built-in surveillance camera functions, even though the property management insisted it wasn't a bear. A resident still released the somewhat blurry footage from their home security camera, showing a large, dark figure. Within 3 days, the police, having mapped the black bear's movements, worked with the Forestry Bureau to capture it. A bear that kills a human, even if it's a nationally protected species, will not escape being put down. With the matter settled, I told my parents to stay in our hometown for a while and rest easy, while I headed back to work first. When I saw my son again, his face was disfigured, and the exposed skin on his body was covered in gruesome scars. Thankfully, all his limbs are intact, so he should have no problem working on an assembly line in the future. Mom, I got expelled from school. You have to take care of me. I want plastic surgery. I need to fix these scars, a form of address I never heard again after the divorce in my past life, right up until the day I died. Hearing it now, it's nothing but pure irony. Seth, you're an adult now. Whether you want to continue your studies or get a job, I have no obligation to take care of you, but I'm your only child. How can you treat me like this? Aren't you afraid you'll have no one to care for you in your old age? After my death in my previous life, my soul did not immediately dissipate. I heard it clearly. My son hung up the phone in disgust when the police called him to identify the body. Relying on him to support me in my old age is less realistic than going home and dreaming about it. Even though I have a pension and never expected any support payments, I need him to understand that I don't owe him a thing. Son, I never missed a single child support payment before you came of age, and I covered the bulk of your medical bills when you got hurt. It's okay if you're young and don't understand the law. Let me tell you, when I'm old, if you refuse to pay support, that's illegal. I can take you to court. Between him and me, he's the only one who owes anything. My son screamed hysterically at my retreating back. Aloan, it's all because you always forced me to study hard and pushed me to succeed when I was a child. That's why I grew distant from you. How can you just abandon me now? You can't abandon me, so that's why my son insisted on bringing home that fake dog, which was really a bear, and so smoothly started calling someone else mom. A self-mocking smile tugged at the corner of my lips, and my steps away from him grew even more resolute. Not long after my son left, my ex-husband came to see me in a wheelchair. Darling, a day as husband and wife means 100 days of affection. I know I was wrong. Let's get remarried. In his telling, his second wife was transformed into a villain who tried to feed him and his parents to the bears, and he, in turn, became the heroic good man who was wounded while protecting his wife, child, and parents. I shot a cold, disdainful glance at my ex-husband, Damon. The truth will always come out. I showed my ex-husband the footage from our living room camera. How did you get this? That camera was bought by me, and the account was registered under my name. Why on earth wouldn't I have access to it? One day after the incident, I suddenly remembered the security camera and tried to log in. To my surprise, my ex-husband and his family are still using the camera I bought. I have to say, I'm genuinely impressed by his level of frugality. Just before my ex-husband stormed off, livid with rage, I kindly informed him, "Oh, by the way, I made a copy of that video and sent it to your second wife." The video of him shoving his parents and wife toward the bear's paws to save his own skin is solid proof of his intentional harm. The only one who got away was our son, who was too quick for him. He exploited everyone else around him to the fullest, within days. I heard the news that my ex-husband had been charged and taken away by the police for investigation. On top of that, his second wife also posted the whole incident online. The fans who had previously sympathized with him after watching his Woe Is Me videos turned on him overnight, becoming his haters, with no ability to work and unable to milk sympathy for clicks anymore. My ex-husband was left with absolutely no income. The two of them fought a bitter, mutually destructive legal battle, and their son jumped into the fray. He wanted to get his hands on his father's inheritance while the old man was still alive. In the end, the ex-husband's house, the one where someone had died, was auctioned off. His second wife received the compensation payout. My ex-husband was sentenced to prison. My son didn't get a single cent and ended up working on an assembly line. With everything settled, I seized the opportunity when my company was expanding its business to another city. I persuaded my parents to leave this city and start a new life with me. Ever since the bear incident, a sense of panic has gripped our neighborhood, with many families choosing to sell their homes and move away. My parents agreed to my proposal without much hesitation. Because I actively responded to the company's call, I was directly appointed as the general manager of the branch office upon my arrival. Everything is getting better. The memories of my past life have faded from my existence like a bad dream, and, story 2, when I opened my eyes again, the entire class had gone back to our first year of high school. Our homeroom teacher from a past life was bound to assist him. She'd get rich as long as she kept us from getting into college, so she preached happy education, went easy on us, half-assed her lessons, and spent 3 years brainwashing us. The whole class's grades plummeted, and in the end, only 2 of us made it to university. We were filled with grief and rage, yet she just laughed and said we had it coming. This time, our whole class has returned from different points in the future. We're bound to change our fate. The results weren't great this time, but it's okay. I've always believed in joyful learning. Lilith stood at the podium in a little white dress, her tone utterly indifferent. We thought we'd lucked out with a hands-off homeroom teacher in our past life, but little did we know it was the beginning of our downfall. Under her brainwashing, our grades kept getting worse. Even the class monitor and academic committee member, who had entered school as top 10 students, only managed to get into second-tier colleges, let alone the rest of the class. Our class set the record for the lowest college admission rate in the history of Nanjing No. 1 High School. 1. When confronted by the principal, Lilith evaded responsibility with the excuse that she was too speechless to defend herself. I looked around and saw that the other students' faces were also filled with shock. My deskmate tugged at my sleeve and whispered, "Did you also get reincarnated?" I replied in surprise, "You too, we're not the only ones." She pulled out her phone from under the desk and showed me the QR code. Join the group chat to discuss. The number of people in the group was growing rapidly. The whole class had their heads down, hands in their desks, typing away furiously. Class monitor, what's going on? Did everyone get reborn or something? Class representative, seems like it. P.E. Monitor, the way she's acting now is so fake. Vice class president, everyone, pack your bags and transfer schools ASAP. We can't afford to waste another chance. All right. To help everyone develop self-study skills. The class representative will review this month's exam papers. The class monitor jolted at the sound of his name, but obediently rose to his feet. She quickly skimmed the test paper and began explaining with unflappable composure. Her practices made it seem like she'd just taken the test yesterday. For those of us who had been reborn, this class felt particularly agonizing. The moment the bell rang, the entire class streamed out of the classroom, racing each other to the playground. What do we do now? Are we really going to transfer schools? Nanjing No. 1 High is the best in our city, and we all worked hard to get in. If anyone should leave, it's her. Why should we be the ones to give up our spots? Exactly. Now that we've got a second chance, we should make the most of it and focus on studying. But with Lilith's half-hearted teaching, what could we possibly learn from her? Plus, she rushes us out the moment evening study ends. Terrified we'll delay her clock-out time, the students buzzed with complaints, their youthful faces etched with worries beyond their years. So when did you all travel back from, anyway? The class monitor suddenly asked. I'm from the year 2030, 2025, 2028. After some discussion, everyone reached a conclusion. Stella, our entertainment coordinator, was the first to travel back in time, while I, Aloan, was the last. We all returned at different times, but the trigger was the same. Someday in the future, we'll regret not having done more practice problems or memorized more texts back in the day. To put it in a nutshell, the bullet fired years ago finally struck between the eyes. Education had come full circle at this very moment. A collective silence fell over everyone as this realization sank in. Samantha, the class monitor, broke the tension. Since Lilith isn't taking responsibility, let's form our own study support group. Class representative Clara raised her hand in agreement. With 8 years at an education institute, I've mastered all the key exam points. I'm confident I can help our whole class excel. Sports representative Grayson volunteered too. Even though I didn't get into college, I studied abroad and my English is top-notch. The classmates got excited hearing this and burst into applause. A crisp bell rang, interrupting our lively discussion. Go back to class for now. We'll figure things out later. Samantha said. When we returned to the classroom, Lilith was wiping the blackboard with just 2 fingers, careful not to get chalk dust on her hands. Seeing us return, she frowned almost imperceptibly. Where did the person on duty go? Me. Noah hurriedly stepped forward. Lilith took a step back and waited until Noah had wiped the blackboard clean before returning to the podium. Let's begin class, everyone. Please turn to page 10. Lilith was an emotionless slide reading machine. She never prepares her lessons, and even has students grade their own homework. If we try to ask questions after class, she sternly turns us down. She calls it learning to think independently. I have no idea how someone so irresponsible became a teacher. Excuse me, teacher, Ms. Lynn from the next classroom knocked on the door. A flicker of impatience crossed Lilith's eyes. Ms. Lynn is the homeroom teacher for class 3 and also our math teacher. Lilith claims to be indifferent to fame and fortune. And she disapproves of Mr. Lin's aggressive pursuit of professional titles. She alleges that Mr. Lin will stop at nothing to climb the ladder to middle management, yet, under Mr. Lin's strict guidance, Class 3 has consistently maintained its position as the top-ranked class in the grade. Isn't it only fitting that such a capable teacher is being promoted? What's the matter? Lilith glanced at Professor Lin indifferently. I'm looking for Clara. Clara returned with flushed cheeks and an irrepressible smile, as if she'd just won the jackpot. She pulled out a math competition registration form, her eyes sparkling with hope. Mr. Lin encouraged me to join the provincial math competition. If I win first prize, I might get a direct admission to Tsinghua or Peking University. The whole class gasped in unison, and a few boys even let out some expletives. Mr. Lin approached me in my past life too. But I lacked the confidence and was worried it would affect my regular studies, so I politely declined. Things are different now. I've tutored many students for competitions, so I'd say I'm quite experienced. I heard there are only 3 spots for the math competition in the entire school. You've really got to bring your game, Luna exclaimed excitedly. Clara nodded vigorously. Before the excitement could settle, Lilith strode into the classroom in her high heels. Her face darkened as she said coldly, Clara, come to my office. Everyone exchanged puzzled glances, wondering what Lilith was up to. I'll go with you, I said. If she's calling for you herself, it can't be good. Clara and I walked into the teacher's office. Lilith was admiring her manicure with an air of utter nonchalance. Professor, is there something you needed? She didn't even bother to look up. She said coolly, you're not going to that math competition. Clara paused, looking puzzled as she asked, why? Lilith replied with a hint of displeasure, why would a girl like you enter this competition? It'd be better to let a boy have the opportunity. Clara let out a bitter laugh. And who does the teacher think I should give it to? Lilith said matter-of-factly, just hand me the registration form. I'll pass it along to Kai from Class 1 for you, when he wins first prize. He'll definitely thank you, Lilith said, tilting her chin up with an air of superiority, as if Kai's mere consideration of the competition application was some great honor bestowed upon Clara. Kai, he's not even in the top 50 of our grade. Are you so sure he can win a prize? Teacher, Lilith wore an expression of simmering anger, yet still tried to maintain her image of being above worldly concerns. One shouldn't be so competitive. It'll only bring you trouble. What's wrong with a student focusing on their studies, Clara? Is that how your parents taught you to speak to a teacher? Seeing Clara remain completely unmoved, Lilith was so infuriated that her voice shot up an octave. I pretended to be asking the chemistry teacher a question, but was actually straining to eavesdrop on their conversation. The name Kai sounds familiar. What's her relationship with Lilith? Why would Lilith, who's always been indifferent to students, go out of her way to secure a competition spot for him? What's all this arguing about? The commotion caught the attention of the dean. Lilith quickly regained her usual composure. It's nothing, just a student acting up. No need for you to trouble yourself. Dean, the teacher asked me to give up my spot in the competition. Lilith was taken aback by Clara's public rebuttal, her eyes widening in disbelief. Principal, please don't listen to this child's nonsense. The head teacher adjusted his glasses and spoke slowly. You're Clara, right? I heard from your teacher Ms. Lin about you. She mentioned you're quite talented. Make sure to give it your all on this exam. Principal, this is a rare opportunity. What if Clara doesn't perform well? Wouldn't that be a waste? Lilith really has no shame, she went on. Kai won first prize in the Olympiad back in elementary school. I'm sure he'll do just as well this time. I chuckled to myself. Is Lilith really this clueless, bringing up something from elementary school? But Lilith remained completely oblivious to everyone's strange reactions and kept rambling on. Kai just has uneven grades. If he could win a math competition, he'd get into Tsinghua or Peking University without exams. That'd be great for our school. And by uneven grades, you mean 35 in English and 53 in math. The math teacher rushed over in a flurry, breathing heavily and gasping for air. Why are you back? Lilith asked in surprise. Didn't you just ask for leave to go home? I heard you're bullying students for no reason. If I didn't come back now, wouldn't that give you a chance to take advantage? Teacher Lin sneered. You know exactly who Kai is to you. Lilith's face flushed and paled by turns, but she still refused to back down. If you're going to falsely accuse me like this, I don't know what to say. Enough. This commotion is utterly disgraceful. The principal snapped. The selections were decided by the school and cannot be changed. Lilith shot the math teacher a resentful glare. Director, you'll come to regret this decision. With that, Lilith stomped her foot and stormed off in a huff. The math competition is scheduled a month from now, which unfortunately conflicts with midterm exams. Lilith was left fuming, walking around with a permanent scowl on her face. She never misses a chance to throw shade at Clara. Greed knows no bounds. Some students shouldn't neglect their midterms just because they're competing. Don't end up with neither a competition prize nor decent grades. Grayson raised his hand and asked loudly, "But didn't you say we promote well-rounded education and shouldn't be forced to study?" The whole class burst into laughter. Lilith's eyes reddened with anger, yet she still clung to her sense of dignity. She pretended not to care and said, "I just don't want classmates to focus on things that don't matter." Clara had quietly put together a set of study notes for all subjects to help us prepare for the midterms. Meanwhile, she was busy preparing for the competition with Mr. Lin, barely having a moment to catch her breath. Everyone cherished the chance to retake the college entrance exams, devouring knowledge like they were starving for it. All the subject teachers said the students in class 4 seemed to be under some kind of collective spell. Even students who used to never ask questions were now crowding the office to the point of causing a logjam. Among them was the vice principal's son, Grayson. Rumor has it the vice principal was so moved he wept with pride, saying his son had finally grown up. The day to announce the midterm exam results soon arrived. 3. Lilith walked into the classroom with a face like thunder. She slammed her bag onto the table with a thud, her eyes scanning the room like laser beams. "Everyone, on your feet, now." People exchanged bewildered glances, wondering what on earth had set her off this time. "Move it." Out of respect for her authority as a teacher, everyone reluctantly stood up in compliance. Lilith paced down from the podium, her eyes scanning every student. "How dare you all attempt to cheat together?" "Teacher, we weren't cheating," Samantha explained. "No. We were 10th in the grade during the monthly exam, and now we've jumped straight to the top 5, and you still claim no one cheated." Lilith sneered. "I can accept poor performance, but I will never tolerate cheating." "Teacher, we really didn't cheat," Luna chimed in. The group's joyous mood over their collective progress was abruptly dampened, leaving everyone visibly displeased. "Care to explain how you made such rapid improvements in your results?" Grayson was about to explain when Clara cut him off. "It's because our teacher is exceptional." Clara actually managed to say things she didn't mean without even batting an eye. I silently gave her a mental thumbs up. Lilith snorted coldly. "Don't think flattery will get you anywhere. Since none of you are willing to admit it, everyone will copy all midterm exam papers 3 times. No, 5 times. The classroom filled with a chorus of sharp, shocked gasps. 5 sets of all subject exam papers. "This is going to take forever to copy. Lilith is clearly messing with us on purpose." Only when she saw us hanging our heads did Lilith finally look satisfied. "All right, take your seats." The phone in the drawer lit up with a message from Grayson. "Grayson, don't worry, everyone. I'll have the butler hire an outsourcing company to handle the copying for us. I'll cover all the expenses." "Clara, I don't think Lilith is just slacking off. It seems like she doesn't want us to do well on the exam." "Luna, I agree. The way she lost her temper was really scary. Shouldn't she be happy if we do well?" Samantha, looking back now, all the signs about her were just off. "She gets a bonus if we get into good schools, so why doesn't she seem to care at all?" "Grayson, is she from old money like me?" A mechanical voice suddenly echoed in my mind. "Congratulations, host Aloan. You've triggered a pivotal storyline and successfully bound with the system, target, Lilith, mission. Prevent Lilith from completing her task. I've been reborn from the year 2042, back when the real world was already thrown into chaos by all sorts of systems. Humans without a system became outcasts, including me, a middle-aged failure who's accomplished nothing. I tried to communicate with the system through my inner voice. System, what is Lilith's mission? To prevent you from getting into undergraduate programs. But what's in it for her? Complete the mission and get a 100 million cash reward. I immediately shared this explosive intel in the group chat. The group instantly went wild. "Stella, Lilith is downright vicious. This affects the future of all 43 students in our class. Clara, seems like we all need to be more careful from now on, and not let Lilith catch wind of anything. Luna, are we just going to let her bully us like this?" Grayson, if it comes to it, I'll ask my dad to step in and have Lilith fired. Samantha, no way. What if she changes her target? Other people could get hurt. Noah, better them than us, right? As soon as these words were spoken, the group chat fell silent. I pursed my lips, recalling my life before I was reborn. No education, no decent job, no money. Samantha, we all came back to 2024 because of regrets. We all want to change our lives. We were lucky to make it back, but others might not be as fortunate as us. Clara, I agree with the class monitor's idea, once again. I'm confident I can help everyone get into their dream university. After a moment of thought, I slowly typed out a line. I believe we're all chosen by fate. Let's go all in. Are 43 of us really going to be intimidated by just one person? The group chat was flooded with an overwhelming wave of I votes. Everyone was fired up with fighting spirit, determined to stand against Lilith to the very end. It felt like more than just our youth had returned, that fiery passion unique to adolescence had come rushing back too. Amid the excitement, I remembered the most important thing: system. Will Lilith face any punishment after completing the mission? Immediate termination. As night fell, I tossed and turned in bed, unable to sleep. System, could you tell me the story of why you chose me? For, host, it's late. You should get some sleep. I can't sleep at all. My mind is racing with everything that's happened these past few days. The system let out what sounded like a sigh. Originally, the system was created to help humanity change their destiny. Desires are endless, giving rise to all kinds of systems. Some systems, corrupted by malevolent thoughts, choose to betray. They feed on human jealousy, greed, and vanity, luring people into wrongdoing. By 2045, malevolent systems dominate, turning the world into a living hell filled with slaughter everywhere. So the main system sent me back to 2024 to find the not yet powerful malevolent system and prevent it from gaining strength by harming people. I'm getting a bit excited. Could I actually be the legendary savior? But the system's next words completely caught me off guard. Only by choosing the most inconspicuous host can we avoid drawing the attention of the malevolent system. I was speechless, unable to tell whether the system was being sarcastic or not. Are you afraid of Lilith's system? The malice system is extremely vigilant. It disguises itself as a calm and indifferent system, but in reality, it commits all sorts of misdeeds. At the slightest sign of trouble, it flees. I see now. So that's why Lilith has been maintaining this facade of indifference toward everything. What was the outcome for Lilith in her previous life? The malice system deceived her, promising a reward of 100 million if no one got into university, 50 million if only a few did, and considering the mission a failure if more than half succeeded, as you command. In reality, she was eliminated right after completing the mission, so no matter the outcome, she was going to be wiped out, right? Yes, her greed was constantly amplified, and her body became the perfect breeding ground for malice. My hands and feet have gone ice cold. How could such evil exist in this world? It's truly terrifying, host. Only if all of you get into first-tier universities will I have a chance to destroy the malevolent system. After a long silence, I responded with unwavering resolve in my heart. We can definitely pull this off. Clara suggested we play dumb to catch the big fish, creating a false impression of slacking off for Lilith, so I pretended to listen to music with my headphones on, but was actually tuning into English listening exercises. Luna seemed to be reading a romance novel, but had the 5-year college entrance exam, 3-year simulation book hidden underneath the cover. The whole class was glued to their phones, but they were actually discussing study tips. Lilith was quite pleased. She said this is exactly what quality education should look like. At this age, they should be free to do what they enjoy. If I didn't know she was bound to that ridiculous system, I might have actually believed her nonsense. System, don't I have any side quests? Like putting Lilith in her place or something. Host, your only mission is the college entrance exam. You should focus your energy on studying. Then are there any cheat codes, like photographic memory, or intelligence boost? Host, you've got to take charge of your own learning. I wanted to ask another question, but the system beat me to it. Host, it's time to grind through some practice problems. I pursed my lips, feeling a bit annoyed. Let me ask one more thing. Is there any reward after completing the task? The system fell silent and took a long moment before responding. A new beginning. Soon enough, it was time for the final exams of the first year of high school. We deliberately kept our scores low to make sure our class ranked last in the grade. Lilith was quite pleased with herself when she saw our report cards. She even told other teachers that her love and care had reformed us, making us turn away from cheating. Mr. Lynn found it unbelievable and privately asked us if there was something wrong with Lilith's mind. We smiled without a word. She's not just crazy, she's completely unhinged. During summer break, Clara received an early admission letter from Tsinghua and Peking University. Lilith must have been furious. She actually called Clara to persuade her to give up the admission offer. Clara ignored Lilith and blocked her without a second thought. The thought of her losing sleep over losing 50 million had me rolling around in bed with glee. 5. At the start of the sophomore year, the school began selecting candidates for the financial aid program. Samantha is registered as a poverty-stricken household. Her father passed away when she was young, and her mother struggled to raise her on the meager income from selling vegetables. The scholarship meant a great deal to Samantha. It would allow her to eat better and buy a new pair of sneakers, but Lilith didn't see it that way. She secretly tore up Samantha's scholarship application. And by the time Samantha realized what had happened, the selection process was long over. Samantha broke down in tears, while Lilith wore a self-righteous expression. With so many underprivileged students in this school, can't you be generous and let someone else have this opportunity? How much money could this scholarship even be? I refuse to believe such a small amount would actually improve your life. Infuriated by Lilith's twisted logic, We collectively wrote a complaint letter and submitted it to the principal's mailbox. Lilith was severely punished, yet she showed no remorse. She even posted about the incident on social media with the caption, "I just wanted other students to have a chance at the scholarship. What's wrong with that?" She expected to be praised by netizens for her selflessness and noble character. Little did she know. Netizens saw right through her and tore her apart in the comments. Applying for financial aid is a student's right. What gives you the right to hide their application? This teacher is such a hypocrite. I'm a student at Nanjing No. 1 high school. The same teacher once pressured students in their own class to withdraw from a competition. After the controversy blew up, a kind-hearted person reached out to Samantha and offered to fund her high school education. Who would have thought Lilith would still try to stir up trouble? Claiming Samantha's poor grades didn't deserve to waste social resources, the other person looked at her with an expression reserved for the intellectually challenged. "I'll do whatever I please. What's it to you?" Lilith was so furious she nearly dropped her calm facade, her face flushing with anger. System, is Lilith trying to force Samantha to drop out? Yes, Samantha's grandmother is seriously ill and needs a lot of money. Without financial aid, she might not even make it through the semester. My nose stung with the threat of tears, but this didn't happen in the previous timeline. Lilith is getting anxious. What should we do then? Keep controlling the scores. Seasons come and go. Year after year, the final semester of senior year arrived. We consistently kept scores artificially low, and Lilith gradually found peace after her anxiety over students getting into Tsinghua and Peking University through early admission. She remained detached, as if nothing in the world concerned her. She didn't care about student grades or performance evaluations. The principal flew into a rage and threatened to fire Lilith. To everyone's surprise, she spouted nonsense like, "All people are born equal. The principal has no right to interfere with her actions." The incident occurred the day before Stella's Badian re-interview. Her face suddenly broke out in a rash of red bumps. Seeing Stella on the video call with her eyes swollen from crying, I felt a mix of complicated emotions. She had taken time off a week in advance to avoid any risks, yet somehow things still went wrong. "Stella, think carefully. Have you eaten anything unusual recently?" Samantha analyzed calmly. "This is way too coincidental. I suspect Lilith might be behind it." Stella was sobbing uncontrollably, her words coming in broken gasps. I didn't. I've been so careful lately." She suddenly froze, her face turning deathly pale. "Last week I left my makeup bag in the classroom. Could it be?" Samantha and I fell silent. Lilith would stop at nothing to achieve her goal, resorting to such vicious tactics. What should I do? Tears streamed down Stella's flushed cheeks like broken pearls, her face a portrait of confusion and helplessness. "System, are you sure there's no item that can save Stella?" Host, "My only responsibility is to supervise your mission completion." A sense of powerlessness washed over me. Why is it that even after being reborn, we still can't break free from the shackles of fate? Just leave me be and get some rest. I'll be fine. There will be other opportunities. Stella wiped away her tears and forced a faint smile. "Samantha," and I let out heavy sighs. "I'm afraid Lilith will pull more tricks next," Samantha said worriedly. I hadn't expected Samantha's fears to come true so quickly. The next day, Grayson and Luna were taken to the principal's office for questioning. Lilith insisted that the two of them were dating. "Principal, some classmates said they're definitely dating. Look, I even have proof." As she spoke, Lilith pulled out a photo and handed it to the principal. Luna is timid and easily embarrassed, and at this moment she's so anxious that she's starting to cry. "Teacher, we were just discussing our studies. We really weren't dating." Lilith Lynn sneered. "Discussing studies, with your average grades. Why aren't you discussing with the top students instead?" the principal said sternly. "Grayson, I thought you had finally settled down, but it seems it was just a passing phase. The headmaster will be very disappointed in you." Lilith had indeed misunderstood the two of them. Grayson and Luna live in the same neighborhood. Grayson is good at English, while Luna excels in physics. Naturally, they formed a study partnership and often studied together on weekends. Someone secretly took their photo, and it ended up being seen by Lilith, principal. I believe Luna is the one pursuing Grayson unilaterally. Lilith's attempt to tarnish the female student's reputation while maintaining her own pure and detached persona comes off as particularly hypocritical. Grayson is a good kid, and I don't want him to be led astray by Luna. Perhaps it's best to expel Luna instead. "You're trying to smear us with just one photo. Is this how a teacher should behave?" Grayson retorted, unable to contain his anger. "I've watched Luna's behavior over the years, and I know exactly what kind of person she is." Lilith remained detached. "So detached it made you want to punch her." Luna tried to seduce Kai before and failed. That's why she moved on to someone else. Kai said he saw her sitting in Grayson's lap multiple times. "I didn't." "Kai is lying," Luna sobbed, her shoulders shaking as she shook her head like a rattle drum. Grayson couldn't take it anymore and immediately rushed forward, landing a punch right on Lilith's face. Lilith had no time to dodge and fell flat on her backside. She covered her face in disbelief. Grayson, never hit women, but you're the exception, he said, his hands trembling with rage. The dean snapped back to his senses and warned in a low voice, Grayson, stop fooling around. My classmates and I were peeking through the window. And we were dumbstruck by what we saw, Noah whispered. I just remembered, in our past life, Kai pursued Luna, but after she rejected him, he got so angry that he started spreading nasty rumors about her. 6. Samantha chimed in. I recall the rumor incident happened during our sophomore year in our past life, and Grayson wasn't involved back then. Could our rebirth have caused a butterfly effect? Attention, everyone. A male voice came over the intercom, sounding like the vice principal. Kai from Class 1, Grade 12 has something to say. Please listen carefully. I'm Kai. I'm here to sincerely apologize. I shouldn't have spread baseless rumors and damaged a girl's reputation. I deeply regret what I've done. Lilith's eyes widened in disbelief as she kept muttering to herself. How could this be? This isn't how it was supposed to go. The principal scratched his head, looking rather embarrassed. He glanced at Lilith, who was still sitting on the floor, and felt a surge of anger. As a homeroom teacher, you falsely accused a student without reason. You're unworthy of being an educator. The vice principal then walked into the office with his hands clasped behind his back. Dad, what are you doing here? Grayson asked in surprise. The vice principal shot Grayson a disapproving look and said, a father knows his son's behavior best. Besides, I don't want underage students to be subjected to baseless smut rumors. The vice principal's tone turned icy, his hawk-like eyes scanning Lilith's face. If I weren't concerned about disrupting the national college entrance exams, I'd expel you right now. For the remaining time, I suggest you behave yourself. Lilith turned deathly pale, her body went limp, and she suddenly passed out cold. System, what's wrong with Lilith? All I got in response was a long, heavy silence. 3 days before the college entrance exam, we had a study break. We cheered each other on before heading home. I was walking home, trying to summon the system, but there was no response. Thinking back, it seems the system hasn't shown up for a while. A vague sense of foreboding crept into my heart. Just as expected, something went wrong the very next second. At the street corner, someone covered my mouth and shoved me into a large truck. Under the influence of the drug, I quickly lost consciousness. I was jolted awake by a splash of cold water. Lilith's expression was menacing, as if she wanted to skin me alive. Professor, what are you doing? Lilith sneered. Aloan, drop the act. I know everything. Manipulating the scores, trying to wipe out my system. How does Lilith know so much? She was still admiring her manicure, unable to hide the smugness in her tone. Did you really think your system could escape my watchful eye? Let me tell you, my system has already taken it down. What do you want? I asked, feigning calm. Lilith, appearing utterly deranged, shrieked, it's all your fault. If you hadn't revealed my plan to them, how could I have possibly failed? I stared straight into her eyes, my tone firmer than ever. You have no right to interfere with our lives. Lilith revealed a malicious grin, still putting up a tough front even now. Are you, system, eliminate her? Lilith's smile vanished instantly, replaced by a look of sheer terror. I flashed her a triumphant grin. Your system is as foolish as you are. My system and I orchestrated an elaborate ruse. It faked its own destruction to bide time and ultimately counterattack the malice system. Lilith turned deathly pale, as if all the blood had been drained from her body. Her breathing gradually faded, and her entire form grew translucent before vanishing before my eyes. I expected the villain to go out with a dramatic, hysterical outburst. I was even ready to enjoy the show. Little did I know she would simply fade away from the world in silence. The system read my thoughts and explained, Host, the dead should be respected. For the sake of humanity, let her pass away without pain. But didn't you say our entire class must get into Tier 1 universities to complete the mission? The malice system has already consumed Lilith's body entirely. If the system dies, Lilith, as its host, cannot survive either. There's a slight heaviness in my heart, just a tiny bit. The day we checked our scores, our entire class was in tears. All 43 students in our class exceeded the special admission cutoff. Though Stella didn't make it into Beijing Film Academy, she recovered and made it to the second round of Central Academy of Drama auditions. She's about to start a whole new chapter of her life in Shanghai. I heard Luna and Grayson ended up at the same university. Wonder if they're actually dating behind our backs. Congratulations, host. Mission accomplished. Until we meet again, host. Before I could even say goodbye, the system vanished completely from my mind. Thank you, system. Thank you for giving me this life-changing opportunity. A decade later, many of our classmates have become leaders in their respective fields. On June 6, 2034, the film adaptation of my novel, Back to 2024, Taking the College Entrance Exam Again, officially premiered. At the movie premiere, the newly crowned Best Actress Stella was moved to tears. I want to thank a group of people. Without them, I wouldn't be who I am today. They're my high school classmates. We locked eyes across the platform and shared a knowing smile. The end. Story 2. 6 months after my brother's death, my sister-in-law gave birth to a baby girl in the urban village and then vanished without a trace. Neighborhood officials tracked down the address and placed the swaddled infant into my arms. With tearful eyes, my parents begged me to raise her. From that day on, I sacrificed my youth and future, becoming an unwed mother with a child. I raised her to become a gymnastics champion. On the day of her celebration banquet, my sister-in-law returned, dripping in jewels. She pointed at my face and screamed that I was a thief who had stolen her flesh and blood. My niece broke free from my grasp, sobbing as she threw herself into her arms, and together with my sister-in-law and her own father, they had me committed to a psychiatric hospital. After being tortured to death, I opened my eyes and found myself back on the day the neighborhood committee came knocking. The sharp, urgent knocking echoed through the hallway early that morning, and my heart clenched in fear. This was the exact moment when Director Wanda from the neighborhood office in my past life knocked on my door, causing a commotion that drew the attention of all the neighbors, in front of everyone. She thrust a baby girl into my arms and sternly criticized me for having a child out of wedlock and leading an immoral life. I later found out that the child was actually my brother's. My parents begged me, saying since I was determined to remain single for life anyway, I might as well raise her. I agreed, but that decision ultimately cost me my life. Just then, that ominous knocking came again. I jolted upright from the bed and rushed to yank the door open. Standing outside was the face I would remember till my dying day. Nora, you're so young yet so wicked. How could you dump your own baby in the trash? Don't you know abandonment is a serious crime? Sure enough, the neighbors had all poked their heads out, whispering and pointing at the scene. I stared at her intently, and in the next second, executed a swift backflip, landing steadily right in front of her. The entire hallway fell into dead silence instantly. Director Wanda, have you ever seen a new mother this energetic right after giving birth? Take another look at my stomach. Does any part of me look like I just had a baby? My series of actions left Director Wanda utterly stunned, just as Linda from across the hall snapped back to reality. That's right. Nora's substitute teaches at the university and goes out every single day. We've never once seen her pregnant. Could there be some mistake? There's an address in the swaddling clothes. It's this very place. The security footage shows the person who abandoned the baby, and their build looks just like yours, Director Wanda said, struggling to maintain her composure. I planted my hands on my hips, my voice rising an octave. Similar build. Half the people on the street have a similar build. You're making baseless accusations to smear my reputation. I'm calling the police. At the mention of calling the police, Director Wanda's face fell. You're such a child. Why are you being so unreasonable? I snatched the swaddled bundle from her arms and held it up high. You don't want me to call the cops. What are you hiding? Or is this child not yours? Are you in cahoots with human traffickers? Without another word, I dialed 110. Hello, officer. There's a suspected child trafficker here trying to pin it on me. That's a vicious slander. When the police arrive, if you can't explain yourself clearly, I'll report you to the disciplinary committee for abusing your power and settling personal scores. Heaven has given me a second chance at life, and every injustice I suffered in my past life has now become my armor. This was the scene that greeted the police when they arrived. Director Wanda was holding the baby, her face flushed with anger. Meanwhile, I stood there in my pajamas, barefoot, with a defiant look on my face. The neighbors had gathered in a thick crowd, after hearing the story. The police examined the infant in the swaddle. She was indeed a newborn, still wearing the hospital wristband. What exactly happened? Explain it clearly, officer. This is the address and name left by her parents. She pulled a crumpled note from her pocket. The officer took it and confirmed the address was indeed mine, and the name matched as well. I crossed my arms and said, I have no idea. Who knows who's using my information to make me the fall guy, anyway? It's not mine. If you want to take care of it, that's on you. As soon as I finished speaking, my parents, who had been hiding behind the crowd, finally pushed their way forward. Nora, just accept her. It's not like our family can't afford to raise a girl, my father said as his opening line. Dad, Mom, have you lost your minds? How can you ask me to take in a child of unknown origin? Who knows what kind of people her biological parents are? What if they were murderers? Or what if she has some hereditary disease or inherits bad traits? I don't want to raise a troublemaker. My parents were left speechless by my words. Director Wanda's face turned pale with anger, and she shoved the child into my father's arms. This is your family's problem. I want no part of it. Had I known you were so unreasonable, I wouldn't have bothered getting involved. In an instant, the room erupted in uproar. Everyone realized my parents were definitely involved in this mess. That's nonsense. You just insisted it was my child, and now you're pinning it on my parents. Do you have any proof? You can't just dump this child on our family without evidence. Officer, I strongly suspect she's trying to shirk responsibility. With that, I shoved the child back into Director Wanda's arms, acting as if it had nothing to do with me. My mother was so frantic she started stamping her feet, exclaiming, Nora, Mom, Dad, don't be naive. There are so many scammers out there these days, and their tricks are getting more sophisticated. Linda chimed in, you two shouldn't act recklessly. Director Wanda immediately claimed this was Nora's child, and now she's pushing the responsibility onto you. Something fishy is definitely going on here. Exactly, who knows where this child even came from? Director Wanda grew flustered and retorted, I've worked at the neighborhood office for 20 years. Do you really think I'd deceive anyone? Just last night, your daughter-in-law Lena rushed to an unlicensed clinic in our district, begging the doctor to deliver her baby. This is the photocopy of her ID she left as collateral. The clinic doctor gave it to me. After saying this, she pulled a piece of paper from her cloth bag. My parents leaned in to look, and both froze. The information on it was unmistakably our sister-in-law Lena's. This was the smoking gun. No doubt about it, the child was Lena's. The neighbors' murmurs grew louder. Didn't Lena die in that accident with Galen ages ago? How could she suddenly reappear and have a baby? Who knows, maybe she never actually died and has been hiding out all this time. And who's the father? Galen's been gone for over half a year. That's nonsense. My daughter-in-law has long since. My mother started to retort but abruptly swallowed her words. Wanda sneered disdainfully. Lena told me to send the baby to your place after giving birth, saying her aunt would raise it. Officer, I even have a recording from the clinic doctor. Then she pulled an old-fashioned voice recorder from her bag and pressed play. There was no such recording device in my past life. Even when Lena came back to slander me, Wanda stood up to testify against me, claiming I had snatched the child away and nailing me to the cross of shame. This woman had ill intentions from the very beginning. Wanda curled her lip and said, if I'd known it would be this much trouble, I would have just sent it to the orphanage. What a nuisance. The police officer sighed and said, this is a family matter. You'll have to work it out among yourselves. I grabbed the officer's arm and said, Officer, this is no family matter. My sister-in-law has been missing for over half a year, and now she suddenly shows up giving birth. What if she's being coerced? What if something happened to her at that illegal clinic? The officer immediately saw the logic in that and took Wanda into custody, escorting her to the illegal clinic. My parents hurriedly followed along, but I turned around and rushed home to pack my bags as quickly as possible. I couldn't stand to spend another second in that house. As I stepped out with my suitcase, a neighbor spotted me and asked, Nora, where are you off to? I'm moving out to the school dorm. That way the kid won't end up with my parents. They just forced me to raise it. Why should I be responsible for my sister-in-law's child? I'm not even married. If word gets out, what will my future in-laws think? They'll assume I had a child out of wedlock. They nodded in agreement, saying, you're right, Nora, you really should think of yourself first. You should go. How awful. And Lena, how irresponsible. She just disappeared after having the baby. Who knows if that shady clinic is the one that harmed the person? No way. I stopped paying attention to their chatter and hailed a cab straight to the school. By the time my parents returned exhausted with that child, I had already completed the dormitory check-in procedures. Right after that, my mom called. As soon as I answered, her voice was full of exhaustion and anger. Nora, where have you been? Faint cries of a baby could be heard in the background, and I calmly replied, I've moved into the school dorm. How could you just move out? What's going to happen to the child if you're gone? It seems they went to that shady clinic and confirmed the child is Lena's, and that she left right after giving birth. I just don't understand why they're so convinced that I'm the one who has to raise this child. Mom, what does this child have to do with me? It's not like I'm the one who gave birth. Right now the most urgent thing is to find Lena and get the truth about who the father is. Anyway, I've got to prepare my lesson now. Gotta go. After hanging up the phone, I went about my usual routine of preparing lessons and teaching classes. It felt like life was finally getting back on track. Just then, Sarah from the office came over with a cheerful smile. Nora, you're still single, right? How about I set you up with someone? My first instinct was to say no. But then I thought, why not give it a shot? Sure. Sarah, who did you have in mind? My nephew is 5 years older than you. He's a PhD who studied abroad and now works as a visiting professor at our university. It's just about noon. How about grabbing lunch together? I agreed right away, and Sarah was absolutely thrilled. She immediately went to make a call and set things up. In my past life, I cut off all my social connections to raise that child. Sarah had tried to set me up with someone before, but I always turned her down, using the excuse that the child was still too young. Looking back now, I realize how foolish I was. I met Sarah's nephew Sean at noon, and we both had a great impression of each other. We exchanged WeChat contacts and agreed to start off as friends. When Sarah came back and asked how I felt, I nodded and said, it went well. We can take it slow and see how things go. She was over the moon and said, listen, if this works out, he'll treat you right. I've watched him grow up. He's got a good heart, no doubt about it. I smiled a bit sheepishly, while Sarah was even more thrilled. Just like that, Sean and I started dating, going out for meals, watching movies. For a whole month, my parents didn't reach out, and I was perfectly content with the peace and quiet, but I never expected my mom to show up at my school unannounced. I was in the middle of a class when the academic affairs office called. Nora, you need to come over right now. Your mom just dropped your daughter off here and left. Hurry up and pick her up. She's crying so loud the whole department can hear her. My mind went blank with a buzz. What daughter? I'm not even married. How could I have a daughter? Professor, you must be mistaken. I deliberately raised my voice so that every student in the lecture hall could hear me. The academic affairs officer sounded exasperated too. How should I know? Just come and see for yourself. After hanging up, all eyes in the room were fixed on me. What's going on? Teacher, I don't know. The academic office said someone claimed to be my mother and brought my daughter here. The students erupted in an uproar, the classroom buzzing like a stirred-up hornet's nest. How could this happen? This has to be some kind of scam. Miss Nora has a daughter. I never heard about that. You never know with young people these days. Could be from her past. Listening to these whispers, I put on a confused and wronged expression, then headed to the academic affairs office accompanied by a few concerned students. When we arrived, the sight of a baby girl crying on the office sofa left everyone utterly speechless. A student breathed a sigh of relief. There's no way this is Miss Nora's child. This baby looks barely a month old at most. Exactly, who would be so malicious? If someone had brought in a several-year-old child, Ms. Nora would never be able to clear her name even if she jumped into the Yellow River. This is just outright character assassination. I sneered inwardly as the academic affairs officer said with an awkward expression, the person who dropped off the child claimed to be your mother. I had no idea. Upon hearing this, I asked him to pull up the surveillance footage, which showed a complete stranger, a middle-aged woman, dropping off the child. I immediately had an idea. Call the police. That woman is definitely not my mother, and I don't even know her. Everyone still seemed hesitant, so I threw my hands up and said, this is child abandonment. I'm a teacher. I interact with all kinds of people. Who knows who's trying to pass this child off as mine? I'm not raising someone else's kid. Everyone agreed it made sense, so they called the police. When the officers arrived, they sorted out the situation and took the child with them. I made a point to ask where the child would be sent. Where else could they go? If we can't find the biological parents, the orphanage is the only option for now. Hearing that definitive answer finally put my mind at ease. I'll never raise that ungrateful wretch again in this lifetime. The police had just left when my mom's WeChat message came through. It was a voice message. When I played it, her furious voice rang out, Nora, your sister-in-law finally got in touch with us. She says she's going to work down south. We're too old to handle raising a child. Just treat her as your own. I immediately typed back, Mom, what are you talking about? I have a boyfriend now. I'm going to get married and have my own kids someday. There's no way I'm taking care of this child. I didn't bring up what happened at the academic office today, and she didn't mention it either, so I acted like I knew nothing. Sean was truly wonderful to me, and 6 months later, we got engaged. On our wedding day, I only invited a few close colleagues and friends. I didn't even tell my parents. After we married, we applied for an exchange program at the main campus, and Sean officially became a specially appointed professor there. In the years that followed, I never went back to that so-called home except during holidays. Even when I did go back, I'd just drop off my things and leave after a few minutes. All I ever wanted for my daughter and was a simple, peaceful life, from a young age, and showed extraordinary talent in gymnastics. By 15, she had won the national junior championships and was exceptionally recruited by the national team. The whole family was bursting with pride when we heard the news. Sean was overjoyed and took our entire family back to our hometown in grand style to celebrate her achievement. Relatives, close friends, and even distant neighbors showed up. My own parents even swallowed their pride and came, though only 16, and stands tall and graceful from years of training. This led my parents to assume the praised girl was undoubtedly Lena's child. My mother grasped Anne's hand, her eyes gleaming with calculation. How thrilled your aunt would be to see you so accomplished. Mom, why bring up Lena on this happy occasion? Is she back? My mother's eyes instantly flickered with unease. No, she hasn't come back, sigh, all these years, and she hasn't once come back to visit you too. I'm afraid something might have happened to her out there. I've heard there are so many missing persons cases nowadays. Most of them never get found. Over the years, I've heard the neighbors talk about Lena plenty. Thanks to my subtle, and not so subtle, publicity, everyone knows Lena ran off right after giving birth. She's seen as a heartless woman, so most people just assume Lena vanished off the face of the earth. But only I know the truth. My parents have been in touch with her behind the scenes all along. The moment I said that, my mother's face fell. Her sharp voice cut through the festive atmosphere of the banquet hall. What nonsense are you talking? Your aunt is alive and well. Instantly, all eyes turned toward us. Only then did my mother realize she had spoken out of turn, her expression turning utterly embarrassed. I smiled faintly. Seems like you're still in touch with my sister-in-law, Mom, so why hasn't she come back for her own daughter? Ah well, I suppose abandoning her own child means she probably isn't doing too well out there, too ashamed to show her face. But let's drop it. This is a celebration after all. My mother visibly relaxed upon hearing this. her lips parting as if to offer some explanation, but in the end, she remained silent. That last sliver of foolish hope within me was completely extinguished. In my past life, Lena returned just as my niece achieved fame and success. This time was no different. I knew she would show up today, though I couldn't pinpoint exactly when. It no longer mattered to me, after all, with my daughter making it into the national team. Officials from the General Administration of Sport and reporters from major media outlets were all in attendance. At that moment, all eyes were fixed on our table. As the guest of honor today, my daughter was invited on stage. When she stepped up, her parents didn't seem to realize she was only 16, and the daughter they kept mentioning, Lena's daughter, would have been 18 this year, if she were still alive. They were completely oblivious to this glaring inconsistency. Still glancing down at their phones every few seconds as if waiting for a message, I smirked inwardly, squeezing Sean's hand as we exchanged a knowing look. Standing on stage, her voice clear and strong, my daughter said, "For everything I've achieved today, the person I want to thank most is my mom. Without her guidance and support, none of this would have been possible. Mom, come up here." My daughter reached out to me. As I smoothed my gown and prepared to stand, a shrill woman's voice suddenly pierced the air. "She's not your mother. She doesn't deserve to stand by your side." At those words, everyone turned to look, and I breathed a sigh of relief. What was bound to happen had finally come. I turned to see that it was Lena, and standing beside her was a man draped in a mink coat and wearing a thick gold chain. "She's here. She finally came after all." I suppressed the turmoil in my heart. After more than a decade apart, she still looked the same. Though time had clearly left its mark on her face, no amount of heavy makeup could hide the fine lines around her eyes or the weariness all over her. Compared to me, the difference was like night and day. At that moment, she walked briskly over, arm in arm with that middle-aged man, my daughter, and frowned tightly and asked, "And you are, this is your aunt, Lena," I said, cutting straight to the chase and revealing her identity. Lena trembled with emotion. "That's a lie, Nora, sweetheart. I'm your birth mother." The room erupted in gasps, and everyone stared at me in disbelief. My daughter raised an eyebrow and retorted, "You're the one lying. Auntie, I'm my mother's biological child. You abandoned your own daughter after giving birth, and she was sent to an orphanage by my grandparents." I never hid Lena's existence from the kids. When they were little and asked about their grandparents, I told them straight up, "Yes, those two are still alive. But I have no intention of going back." I also came clean about how Lena gave birth to the child and how my parents pressured me into adopting them. That's why Sean's family knows all about the history between Lena and me. At this point, Lena burst into tears, crying on cue, "My child, she lied to you. She's the one who deceived you. After I gave birth to you, I asked your grandparents to look after you temporarily. But your heartless aunt, she stole you away, all these years. She never dared to return to our hometown, all because she was afraid I'd find you. Sister, why would you do this? I've been searching for you all these years. It's been agony. You can't just tear a mother and child apart like this." At these words, everyone turned to look at her. Lena was sobbing her heart out, but soon she sensed something was off. She looked up and saw nothing but scorn and suspicion in the eyes around her. Panicking, she cried out, "Why won't you believe me? She really did steal my child. That's not how it happened." Linda from across the hall stepped forward. "Lena, don't you dare spread lies. Back then, Director Wanda brought the child claiming it was Nora's, but Nora exposed her right then and there. The police got involved, and it turned out you were the one who gave birth and ran off, leaving the child with your parents. Your parents are getting on in years. How could they possibly raise a child? So they gave the baby away." Hearing this, Lena was stunned. My mother immediately stood up, her voice trembling. "I didn't give the child away. I had someone take them to Nora's school." Linda curled her lip. "We all went to Nora's wedding. We never saw any child there at all." "Exactly. You two shouldn't speak carelessly," my mother snapped. "I was the one who had someone take her to Nora's school." "Lena, don't be foolish. Your sister has been raising your child all these years. You should be thanking her. Look how outstanding this child is. She even made it to the national team." My mother was truly frightened, especially when she met my icy gaze. A wave of panic washed over her for no reason, and she immediately backtracked. Lena immediately wiped away her tears and said to me, "Sis, it seems I misunderstood you, but, sweetheart, I really am your birth mother." My daughter looked at her in astonishment, then at me, and exclaimed, "That's nonsense. I'm not your daughter." My mother-in-law stepped forward without hesitation and slapped her across the face. "What kind of bullshit are you spouting here? This is my daughter-in-law's child, carried for 10 months and brought into this world. The hospital has complete records from her first prenatal visit to delivery, when she gave birth to, and she had a difficult labor with severe hemorrhaging. It took 3 days of emergency care at the provincial hospital to pull her through. Our whole family called in every favor we had to save both mother and child. How dare you claim my precious granddaughter is your own child? Have you no shame? My father-in-law stepped forward and snapped, say one more word of that nonsense, and I'll call the police for defamation. Lena held her red, swollen cheek, her lips trembling as she stood there in shock. She flinched, then suddenly looked at me. I raised an eyebrow, and it clicked for her instantly. It was you, Nora. You fabricated all of this, the man beside her shouted hoarsely. You've got wealth and status now, professors, business owners, what's forging a little document to you? If you've got the guts, take a paternity test. Let's just get a paternity test done, child, then everything will be clear as day. My daughter completely ignored him, and my in-laws stood firmly in front of us, shielding us. Meanwhile, my own parents chimed in, backing up Lena. Nora, just give the child back to your aunt. Exactly, Lena has had such a hard time all these years away from home. Don't you still have a son of your own? Just give him back to her. All the guests turned to look, murmuring among themselves. What on earth is going on here? Did they really take someone else's child and now can't bear to return her after raising her? You can't just sever a bond built over more than a decade, but she is her biological mother after all. Bullshit. They clearly said it's their own biological child. Why on earth would they give it away? Lena, you keep insisting this child is yours. Do you have any proof? Does the child have any birthmarks? Mom, did you actually see me take that child in? I asked coldly. Both of them looked stunned. I let out a cold laugh and said, forgot to mention, my daughter is only 16 this year, and she's in the national youth gymnastics team. Your daughter should be 18 this year. The age doesn't match. You've mistaken her for someone else. Upon hearing this, everyone finally realized, that's right, and is 15. I even attended her 1-month celebration. Now I remember, and is the younger sister. Nora had her the year after she got married. When Nora got married, she didn't even invite you, right? I remember that now. My parents' faces at that moment were absolutely mortified. Lena staggered back 2 steps, her face full of disbelief. You're lying. I get it now. You're deliberately understating the child's age so you won't have to give them back to me. The crowd burst into mocking laughter, everyone convinced Lena had lost her mind. No sooner had the words been spoken than the sports bureau director stepped forward, his expression stern. Madam, it is you who are speaking nonsense. If what you claim were true, our national team's eligibility would be immediately revoked. The severity of this matter cannot be overstated. I will report this at once and involve the police for a thorough investigation. All registration documents submitted by Comrade and clearly indicate she is only 16 years old. At that moment, the daughter produced her ID card. I am willing to undergo a paternity test and cooperate with a police investigation, but if I am not your daughter, you will bear full legal responsibility for today's defamation, slander, and the harm inflicted upon my mother, and is my precious child, carried for 10 months and born of my own body. She has always been sensible and filial since childhood, cherished by her grandparents. My son immediately stood by my side and demanded, how dare you speak about our mother like this? What evidence do you have beyond baseless accusations? My mother has my birth certificate, household registration, and ID card. What proof do any of you have? My mother turned deathly pale, her voice trembling as she stared at me. You're lying, Nora. If Anne is really your daughter, then what happened to Lena's child? I shrugged with feigned realization. Well, I suppose she's probably in an orphanage. Come to think of it, 18 years ago when I was working at the university campus, the academic affairs office once told me that a woman claiming to be my mother had abandoned an infant girl there and asked me to take her in. After checking the surveillance footage, I realized I didn't recognize the person who dropped off the child at all, so I immediately called the police. The officers took the child away, probably to an orphanage. Many teachers and students at our school can verify this story. If you don't believe me, go check the police records from that year. Upon hearing this, Lena let out a piercing scream and lunged at me like a madwoman, but I swiftly backhanded her and sent her tumbling to the ground. How dare you hit me, Nora? Give me back my daughter. I let out a cold laugh. You monster, you gave birth to that bastard child and then ran off, claiming it was my brother's. You dumped that mess on my parents and even tried to frame me, expecting me to raise your child out there. You've been living it up for over a decade, and now that you see my daughter has made something of herself, you think you can just waltz back in and reap the rewards. Let me tell you, you were never destined for greatness. With that worthless DNA of yours, how could you possibly produce a champion like my daughter? Keep dreaming. Why don't you ask these wonderful parents beside you who they sent to deliver the child to my school? Why didn't they bring her themselves? My mother panicked completely, meeting Lena's accusatory gaze. She stammered, I was afraid Nora wouldn't see me, so I paid a stranger to deliver the child. I was hiding nearby, and I clearly saw Nora carry the baby inside. She suddenly fixed her eyes on me. Nora, how could you be so heartless? How could you send that child to an orphanage? She's your own niece, she's your own granddaughter too. Weren't you the one who heartlessly dumped her on me back then? Lena screamed hysterically. All of you shut up. My daughter is, and it's her. Nora, you must have lied to me. The man with the fake gold chain nearby said gravely, "How could Frank's daughter end up in an orphanage? Lena, if you don't give me a proper explanation for this, you'll have hell to pay." At this point, Lena was completely panicked. I took out my phone and called the police again. The police showed up, but it was useless. Lena threw a tantrum, and in the end, I agreed to take a paternity test, and an expedited one at that. Afterward, my daughter went back to her victory celebration. And I assured the sports administration officials that there would be absolutely no issues. All events documents were authentic and valid. 3 hours later, the paternity test results came out, in black and white. It was crystal clear, I am N's biological mother. The moment she saw the report, Lena completely broke down. She lost her composure, looked up at me in disbelief, and asked, "Did you really send my daughter to an orphanage?" I threw up my hands. How could I possibly keep and raise a child of unknown origin? I've told you countless times, hand her over to the police. If her parents can't be found, the only place for her is an orphanage. If she's lucky, she might still be at the orphanage. If you go now, you might just see her. If luck isn't on her side, she might have already been adopted by some family. If I were you, I'd head straight to the orphanage right now instead of wasting time here, before she could even react. That man named Frank brutally kicked her to the ground. "You worthless bitch. Back then, you told me you just needed a donation, said you'd made something of yourself, and brought me here to meet the family, and now, you useless piece of trash." Frank raised his foot and stomped hard on her face. Lena let out a piercing scream. My parents rushed over to protect her, but Frank kicked them down too. Only then did my mother remember me. She turned, crawled over, and grabbed my pant leg. "Nora, do something, quick. Do you want to just stand by and watch your sister-in-law get beaten to death?" I kicked her hand away. "Weren't you doing the same thing, watching your own daughter and pushing her toward ruin? If I couldn't provide evidence today, I'd be the one everyone points fingers at, accused of child abduction. I'd become a universally despised human trafficker. Am I not your own flesh and blood? Why are you treating me like this? Besides, there's no guarantee your granddaughter is even biologically related to you." My mom snapped. "Why are you being so nitpicky? We're family. You're doing so well now. What's the big deal about supporting one more person? I shouldn't have held on to even a shred of hope for them." I shook off her hand and said, "Sorry, I can't help. Either you call the police yourselves, or figure it out. I'm not cleaning up this mess." With the paternity test results in hand, I told the police directly. "I'm suing her for defamation and causing a public disturbance over what happened today. I demand a public apology and compensation for my daughter's emotional distress. She ruined my daughter's celebration. I won't let this slide." Sean immediately called in the legal team to handle everything, while we rushed back to continue celebrating our daughter's victory at the banquet. The Sports Bureau officials breathed a huge sigh of relief after seeing the paternity test results. Everything was fine. The champion's future remained completely secure. After the banquet ended, our family returned to the hotel. Sean had already bought us a house here. The next morning, my parents called me, sobbing uncontrollably. "Nora, please come quickly. Let's go to the orphanage together. Please, I'm begging you, for my sake. Come help your aunt. Frank is beating her to death." Hearing this, I glanced at Sean beside me. He gave me a nod, so I agreed and went with him to the orphanage. When we met them at the orphanage entrance, Lena's face was covered in bruises, swollen and battered. The moment she saw me, her eyes flashed with intense resentment. I let out a cold laugh. All of this was Lena's own doing. It had nothing to do with me. But when we arrived at the orphanage, the staff informed us that the girl named Mabel had long been expelled for misconduct. Expelled? What do you mean? Lena looked utterly shocked. Stealing, fighting, never learning her lesson. She dropped out of vocational school and started hanging out with the wrong crowd, then never came back. If you're looking for her, try the Midnight Fantasy KTV in the west part of town. Heard she works there. We rushed to that KTV and were immediately hit by the pungent smell of cigarettes and alcohol as we stepped inside. After asking around, we finally spotted the girl named Mabel in a dimly lit private room. She had shockingly bright pink hair and was drinking and playing dice with a group of troublemakers. Her belly was noticeably swollen, looking at least 7 or 8 months pregnant. I was stunned by the sight. She was only 18 herself. How could she already be about to become a mother? The man beside her didn't look much older, but he had a distinctly thuggish air about him. Lena staggered over, her voice trembling as she asked, You're Mabel," without even looking up. She let out an impatient and snapped, "Who is it? What do you want?" The thug next to her wrapped his arm around her waist, glaring at us defiantly. "Who the hell are you? You got business with my girl, and who are you supposed to be?" Lena shot back, her temper flaring. "I'm her man, the father of the baby she's carrying. Got a problem with that?" Lena was so furious she nearly fainted. "Mabel is only 18. You got her pregnant." The punk scoffed dismissively. "So what? It was consensual. See this? That's my kid right there in her belly. Who the hell are you, old woman? Mind your own damn business. I'm her mother, Lena screamed. Hearing this, both Mabel and the thug froze. Then, Mabel looked up, her eyes bleary with drink, and gave Lena a once-over before suddenly laughing. My mother. I've been an orphan since I was a kid. Are you just trying to scam me, you old hag, all dressed up like you're somebody? How dare you come here claiming to be family? As he spoke, the thug spat on the ground near Lena's feet. Get lost. Don't ruin our drinking. Frank charged forward. You're asking for it, punk. Seeing Frank's menacing expression, the thug immediately backed down and hid behind Mabel. You're supposed to be my daughter. This has to be a mistake. Frank glared at Mabel with disgust. I retrieved Mabel's archived photo from the orphanage and compared it to the girl in front of me. It was definitely her. That's right, Mabel. These two are your biological parents. Mabel stared at them in disbelief. How is that possible? If you don't believe me, go get a paternity test. See those designer labels on your dad and mom? They're loaded. Mabel's eyes instantly lit up. She quickly pulled the thug to his feet. Hear that? These are my real parents. We've hit the jackpot. Sorry about earlier. I didn't recognize how important you were. Lena felt sick to her stomach watching their expressions and stammered. Impossible. There's no way you could be my daughter. I couldn't resist stirring the pot. Lena, how could you do this? You haven't come home in over a decade, and now you're back specifically to find your biological daughter. Well, she's right here in front of you. How can you possibly deny her? Sean chimed in, twisting the knife. Exactly, you've always said your daughter was the best. Now that you've found her, you can't just turn your back on her because she's down on her luck. That would break her heart. Lena was so furious with the two of us that she nearly passed out. I nudged Mabel and said, hurry up, find a place where your parents can treat you to a meal, and while you're at it, get a paternity test done. It's time to return to your roots. Last night, Sean had someone look into Frank's background. Turns out, his designer clothes and gold chains are all fake. He's not some big shot businessman, just a deadbeat who's been hustling at the card tables for years. After all these years of achieving nothing, he came back with Lena just to scam money from our family. Little did he know, I never gave him the chance. Seeing his own daughter in such a wretched state left him completely stunned. But I won't let them off the hook that easily. It wasn't until they got the results from the paternity test center and confirmed the biological relationship that I finally felt completely at ease. Trash deserves to be stuck with trash for life. My parents were stunned. Mabel's DNA test showed she wasn't biologically related to my brother at all. All those years they'd hoped I'd adopt her. They were shaking with rage and wanted to kick them out. Not a chance. If you wanted a granddaughter so badly, I'll make sure you get your fill. I sent all 5 of them back to my parents' cramped, run-down place, then walked away without looking back, leaving with Sean. Lena panicked, but it was too late for regrets. Convinced they had money, Mabel and her deadbeat boyfriend brazenly moved into my parents' house. When Lena and Frank returned, they had nowhere to go. All 7 family members were crammed into that tiny apartment under 60 square meters. Linda later told me over the phone that their household was in complete chaos every day. Mabel demanded a 200,000 yuan bride price for her wedding, and her good-for-nothing boyfriend insisted on an additional 300,000 yuan as a greeting fee. There was no way they could come up with that kind of money. Those two had intended to scam me, but I was prepared. I turned their own mess, a worthless, chaotic situation, right back on them. Now they refused to acknowledge their daughter. Filled with bitter regret, but I'm no pushover. I won't lift a finger to help them. When Mabel realized she couldn't get the money, she teamed up with that local thug and beat Frank with a rolling pin from our home. When my parents tried to intervene, they got caught in the crossfire. My father suffered a concussion on the spot, and my mother was shoved to the ground, breaking her leg. Lena tried to run, but Mabel broke her arm. By the time I rushed to the hospital after receiving the call, I found them all lying in hospital beds, moaning in pain. My mother held my hand, tears streaming down her weathered face, and cried, Nora, I was wrong. I was truly wrong. Can you please help us? Get those troublemakers out of our lives. Mom, how could that be acceptable? That's Lena's biological daughter, your own flesh and blood granddaughter. She went astray precisely because she lacked parental love and guidance. Now you must pour all your love into helping her find the right path. My mother's face instantly fell into utter despair upon hearing this. I pulled out my hand, paid their medical bills, and turned to leave without another word. Lena was in so much pain she couldn't lift her arm, yet still tried to ask me for money. Without hesitation, I kicked her hospital bed and said, You mean nothing to me, Lena. You ruined my daughter's celebration yesterday and publicly slandered our family. My lawyer will be settling this with you. You still have the nerve to ask me for money. In your dreams. I'll pay the bare minimum in alimony to Mom and Dad as required by law. Beyond that, I won't lift a finger. In my past life, I died because of their schemes and cold indifference. This time, I won't make the same mistake again. As I walked away, the desperate cries of my parents and Lena echoed behind me. Later, Linda would occasionally update me about their family situation. She said Mabel had stubbornly overstayed her welcome at home and even called over the delinquent's parents to help with her pregnancy, reducing Lena to a full-time caretaker for the entire household. Mabel eventually gave birth to a baby girl, which sent the delinquent's family into a rage. They blamed Mabel for failing to produce a son and even took their anger out on Lena, beating her as well. The delinquent's family escalated their demands for money, resorting to physical violence when refused. They even forced Lena to scavenge through trash bins for bottles, essentially turning the entire family into tools to support those two parasites. That whole wretched family deserves to be tangled together, tormenting each other until they rot. 6 months later, Sean and I went back to our hometown to handle some property matters. We planned to sell our old house in the city center and settle down in the capital for good, following our daughter. At the entrance of the residential complex, I spotted Lena. It had only been half a year since we last met, but she looked like she'd aged over a decade. Her hair had turned gray, and her eyes were clouded and dull. As soon as she saw my car, she rushed toward it like a madwoman and started pounding on the window. "Nora, it shouldn't be like this. It shouldn't be. Didn't you jump to your death long ago? Everything of yours should be mine, and it's all mine." She chased after my car, screaming her lungs out.